afternoon, my YouTube friends, and welcome to another video on my channel. I'm Nathan, thanks for watching. Now just an FYI, if you hear saws going in the background, kids yelling, dogs barking, that's because I have the windows open because it's such a beautiful day outside. And I'd encourage everyone to get outside as much as they can and enjoy the beautiful weather that we're having in October. When does that ever happen? Before it gets nice and cold and gloomy and snow starts falling and all that fun stuff. So today, what do I want to talk about? I was thinking about this and I want to talk about something that I implemented recently in my life, and it has drastically changed how I go about every single day. And not only in my life, but other people who have implemented this have also seen crazy changes in their life that they didn't see otherwise. And what is that? I'm talking about reading. Reading. I used to hate that as a kid. On family trips, my mom would always say, "Bring a book, Nathan, because you're going to be in the van for a long time." And I'd be like, "Nah, Mom, I'm just going to bring my Game Boy and try to beat the next Mario Kart level," or something like that. My sister, on the other hand, she would always bring a book. My brother and I would go back and forth, try to beat the levels, but she would be reading. And she saw the benefits at a younger age that I'm seeing right now in my life. So why did I hate it? I thought it was boring. I didn't see any use for it. I actually used to subscribe to a lot of magazines as a kid, but to be honest, I never actually read them. I would just glance through the pictures. Occasionally I would read the articles, but it'd be very rare. So why should you start reading? Well, for one, the most successful people in the world today read almost all of the time. Whether they're reading reports, reading the newspaper, reading books out of interest, or reading articles online. They're always reading. And so if you want to be successful like them, I think that we should add their habits to our life, and therefore we should start reading. Reading will also help you to gain more knowledge in different areas or areas of interest. So if I'm interested in technology, why don't I pick up a book that one of the CEOs of a big tech company wrote? Or why don't I read a biography on Steve Jobs, who used to be the CEO of Apple, which is one of the most valuable companies in the world right now. And I guarantee you, you can find something that you will be interested in. You just have to sit down and read. So what other benefits are there to reading? Well, for one, it gives you more knowledge. Authors spent countless hours writing that book that you are holding in your hand or on your bookshelf or are getting from the library or downloading from the internet. They spent so many hours putting their thoughts on paper, so you are basically reading this book, looking at it from their perspective. Sometimes it helps to look at things from different perspectives, and that's why books are so helpful. You can also gain the equivalent of a full undergrad degree from just reading. So if I'm interested in business, I could pick up countless business books and basically be on the same level, without a degree obviously, but be on the same level as somebody who graduated with a degree in business, but have the same knowledge as them. Some of the books that I'm interested in now are business type books, personal development types books, and the School of Hard Knocks books, meaning advice from other people, other successful people that have gone through issues that I'm going through or issues that I will go through, or just advice on how you should go about your day-to-day basis, how to goal set and stuff like that. So let's go right to the beginning, when I first started to read. What made me transition from not reading to wanting to start learning to read? I think I was actually scrolling through Facebook one time and I came across a quote that says, I said it earlier, but I'll say it again, is the most successful people in the world today read a lot. And I was like, I want to be successful, so I should try to implement that in my life. And then I searched on the internet, good books to read if you want to be successful, or top books to read suggested by the most successful people, or something like that. And I came across one book in particular, and I absolutely love it. And that book is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This book talks about how to interact with other people, how to get out of arguments, how to listen to people, how to get people to like you, and all these things, all wrapped into one book. This guy is not around today. This book was written years and years ago. So the same advice that he gave back then is equivalent and is meaningful in today's day and will be meaningful in years and years to come. I have read this countless times. I read through the first time and wrote a bunch of notes. I sometimes go back to those notes because I don't want to go through the entire book. But I've also read the book at least 2 times now since I first read it. That was the first book. I've read so many other books that have benefited me. Right now, some of my favorite ones are The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins, which talks about getting over that fear or that initial hesitation you get when you know you should do something. Like, I should raise my hand in a meeting, or I should go up and talk to that colleague, or I should start a business. It's how to get over that initial hurdle and how to beat your fears. Another book that I really like is Unshakable by Tony Robbins. And that basically talks about how to set yourself up for financial independence in the future. And he talks about what to invest in, what kind of funds to invest in. He actually interviews some of the best investment gurus in the world right now today, like Ray Dalio, who is the CEO and founder of Bridgewater Capital, $1 billion investment firm. Warren Buffett, who also has $1 billion of assets under his company, and that is Berkshire Hathaway. And countless other, I think there's about 10 people he interviewed who are the leaders of our game, of the investment game today. So all these books that I mentioned are personal development type books or financial help type books. And that's kind of those are the topics that I'm interested in right now. That may change in the future, but for right now, that's what I'm interested in. I'm not really interested in like the drama type books or the story, well, not really stories, because stories are cool, but like stories that have no meaning behind it or no advice you can gain or wisdom you can gain from it. When I'm reading something, I want to learn something. I don't want to be reading something just to pass the time and be interested in it. Kind of like watching a movie where you're interested in the time, but you don't really gain any knowledge from it. I want to read a book that weeks, months later, I can look back and be like, hey, I remember reading that and I learned something that day. So I know what you're saying. Nathan, I'm so busy with school, work, extracurriculars, going to the gym, soccer practice, whatever it is. I'm so busy. I don't have time for reading. So I'm going to tell you when I read and how I add that to my life. I commute to work every day. So for a half an hour, I'm just sitting on a train doing nothing. So I start reading then. So I read for as much as I can until I usually fall asleep. So that's probably like 10 minutes. So it's not very long, but I still read until I fall asleep. So that's both ways. So that's going to work and coming from work. Also, when I am about to fall asleep, I will brush my teeth, get in bed, and I'll pull out my book and start reading. So those are two areas. Additionally, and I just added this kind of recently in the summer, is audiobooks. Every time I go in the car now, I put in an audiobook, whereas I used to just listen to music or the radio or something like that. I now try to actually learn when I'm driving so that I am gaining knowledge and not just blindly passing the time. So those are some of the times that I read. Hopefully you can use some of those times to add reading to your life. So now, how do I read? Like I said before, when I first started, I physically had a book and I was just flipping through the pages and going that way. However, books are heavy to commute with, and so I purchased a Kindle, which is right here. I can store a ton of books on this and not have to worry about it getting damaged from getting wet or carrying around a heavy book when I'm traveling or something like that. I have this Kindle, which is really light. So I went to this. And what's cool about this Kindle or any e-reader is that you can actually highlight sections, and it will save those sections you highlighted that you can export to your computer, which I save to a document, which I can read all of my summary notes after I've read it. So now I have that. I also, if I really like the book, I'll actually physically buy it because for some reason I like having the book as well as having the Kindle, which is kind of weird, but it's something I like to do. So if I recommend a book, I'll hand them to them and not just be like, hey, read this. Now, just recently, I have started to listen to audiobooks. And what's great about audiobooks is you can listen to it while walking, while driving, wherever you're going. You can listen to it. Whereas if you're driving, you can't really read because I think that's kind of illegal. Also, audiobooks are great because you can actually increase the speed that they are speaking to you. So what they're regular speaking, like 1 times, you can actually increase to 1.5 times to 2 times, which is what I listen to. And that's super fast, but you get used to it. It sounds really fast at the beginning, but as you get used to it, it's not too bad. And then when you actually go back to 1 times, it sounds really, really slow and boring. So listening to it at 2 times speed allows you to get through the content a lot faster, and it allows you to I guess, take in more information at one time. So the 2 books that I have just recently read, one I just finished and one I just started, which I really like right now. The first one is The Richest Man in Babylon, and that is basically a story format to how to acquire wealth and how to set yourself up for financial independence in the future by using the money you get today and setting aside a portion of that for certain areas in your life. And the book that I'm reading right now is called If I Could Just Tell You One Thing. And that basically is this guy who went around to interview a lot of very successful people and asked them for one piece of advice. Not 3, 4, or 5, but one piece. That'd be really difficult for me because I'd want to give a lot of advice. But this guy just asked the person for one piece of advice, so they have to think really hard on what they want to give because what they say will be in the book and they can't go back on it later. So the advice that they give is really helpful. So what books have you guys read that you would recommend me read? I'd love to hear about it in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to hear more, don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button for more. Thanks guys.